Let's two.
Two indeed. Hello and welcome into Celtics Now. Michaela Vernava here with you. What a time to be bleeding green. Let's see how many times I can say some form of the word two right now. Celtics with the emphatic win in Game 2 Tuesday night at TD Garden. That's win number 2, which puts the Bucks in a 2-game hole as the series shifts to Milwaukee. And it's thanks in large part to two players in particular. Just kidding, in particular. That would be Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier, who stepped up big time for their team. But it has been a full team effort. Boston with the major edge in bench scoring this series, outscoring Milwaukee's reserves 68-48. The team's been making the most of the Bucks' mistakes, scoring 48 points off turnovers through the first 2 games. So 2 down, 2 to go, and the crowd was bumping at TD. Celtics fans are feeling it, and rightfully so. The bonus, some of Boston's finest were in attendance. The Pats were in the house, including fan fave JE11, plus some serious girl power. Boston Marathon winner Desiree Linden, the first American female winner in 33 years, getting the crowd riled up. Along with New England natives, USA women's national hockey team, and gold medalists, bringing some victorious vibes to the Garden. And the 18,624 fans in attendance got one of these green t-shirts because the C's have had some of their best performances when their jerseys were untucked this season. Exhibit A, Terry Rozier. This guy is getting it done in Kyrie's absence, and his shirt just happened to be untucked in Game 2. But before he suited up in his game jersey, check it out. Channeling his inner Larry Bird, love seeing the young kids honor the legends. Rozier went on to have a second straight turnover-less game, but still no respect from a certain Buck.
Terry Rozier's gotten off to a strong start to this series. No turnovers in 78 minutes. How personally do you take that matchup?
Who?
Terry Rozier.
I don't even know who that is.
Well, Mr. Bledsoe, let me fill you in. Terry Rozier has played 78 minutes through the last 2 games without a turnover, and he's contributing 23 points per game while shooting 50% from three-point land and 90 from the line against your Bucks.
I've just got that confidence. My teammates, my coach, they trusted me to get everybody in their spots, to run the plays. That's just part of being a point guard, protecting the ball. So, I'm gonna do what I can to protect the ball and get my guys open to make plays and put us in a position to win. And that's just part of it. I don't notice stuff like that with the turnovers, but that's a good thing to have, and I just want to keep it going.
And another Mr. Clutch for the Green, Jaylen Brown, posting 25 points per game. His 30 in Game 2 make him the youngest player in Celtics history with 30 or more points in a playoff game.
To be honest, I don't even pay attention to it. I just been keep playing basketball all year. My teammates, helped me out a lot by finding me. Terry found me a lot during the course of the game, and I was able to hit some shots. But ultimately, we just want to win games. I think that's the only thing we concerned with. Confident. We confident as ever. Team's been writing us off all year, and we just keep proving people wrong. So that's what we're gonna do.
Time now to welcome in our basketball analyst, Darren Hartwell. And Darren, some news out there on Zach Lowe's podcast. ESPN analyst Kevin Arnovitz revealed that a certain anonymous NBA coach, he wants to pump the brakes on the Brad Stevens hype train, and I'm curious what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, this was pretty interesting. I mean, I get where he's coming from. There's certainly a lot of Brad Stevens hype out there. He's kind of the favorite NBA coach of the moment, so I can see why we want to pump the brakes a little bit. That said, it's just a little bit weird that he would come out and say these kind of negative things about Brad Stevens. You don't really hear that too much. Coaches talking smack amongst each other. I think Brad Stevens is one of the best young coaches in the league. Whether he's the best, ahead of Greg Popovich or Steve Kerr, guys like that, probably too early to tell. But at least right now, I think he's proven that he's taken the team pretty far with limited resources.
Yeah, and that's what I think is most surprising about it, is that it's not like we're putting him in the fame of greatest all-time coaches, but as of right now, he's doing a really great job with what he's got. And his impact on this series, I mean, he's been able to lead this team to 2 wins now without key players like Kyrie Irving, Marcus Smart.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of the Brad Stevens doing a good job and then the players buying in too. I think they have good players. Danny Ainge has done a good job of finding people who will buy into the system. But yeah, he's definitely had a big impact. You know, you look at, obviously Terry Rozier has been a big factor in the series, but the bench has been, you know, we mentioned earlier in the show, they've outscored the Bucks bench by 20 points in the series. You have Shane Larkin putting up 11 points. You have Marcus Morris, Greg Monroe all contributing. So I think, you know, if you look at the Bucks bench, they're really not doing much outside of, you know, their starting 5. So I think that's a testament to Brad Stevens and getting, you know, the whole lineup prepared for this series.
Well, here is Stevens himself on what his team has been able to do so far this postseason.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't play with an edge, we'll get beat by 30. So we better play with an edge. Better play competitive, better be tough. Can't let go of that. I mean, that's, you don't have a chance if you don't do that. That's kind of who we've been. Like, that's why we've got very good players. We've got very versatile players. We've got very confident players. We care about the game. We care about each other. But first and foremost, we've got really competitive guys. And, you know, if you don't compete, you're going to get beat. The game will be honest.
So the gritty Celtics continuing to do what it is that gritty Celtics do. And as for the Bucks, some frustration considering they shot 60% and still lost.
Definitely frustrating. We're showing that we can get any shot we want if we take care of the ball instead of turning it over. And then they're just getting those second chance points. That's just really killing us right now, the second chance points and the turnovers. If we take away those 2 things or limit them as much as possible, we give our chance a much better chance to win.
Now, Darren, Giannis was glued to the stat sheet the entire press conference after the game. I don't know what exactly he was looking for on there. Just sort of seems to be searching for answers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe, you know, 2 things. Maybe he's looking for Jabari Parker on there. Probably didn't really show up. He had 0 points in 10 minutes. Probably wondering where he is. And also, he shot 13 of 17. So he had a pretty good game from the field himself. But things didn't really add up for him. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's a math issue.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to find the answers he's looking for on that sheet. But here's what Coach Joe Prunty had to say about his team's loss.
I think there were quite a few possessions tonight where we weren't spaced the way we needed to be spaced. And when I say that, utilizing the corners, getting there, and then making sure we stayed there instead of either creeping in towards the basket or moving up out of the corner. I think the biggest thing for us is we want, like I said earlier, we want to be aggressive and assertive with how we play, but we also have to make sure we get to the right spots on the floor. So here's the thing about Giannis. He leads the league in playoff points right now. He's 4th in total rebounds, 6th in assists, but none of that matters if the Bucks aren't winning. So Darren, I'm curious if you think the team's leaning too heavily on him.
I would say so, yeah. I think if you watch the game, the offense pretty much flows through him. You know, he's a guy who can dribble the ball up the court. He's kind of the de facto point guard, especially when Eric Bledsoe isn't on the floor. So yeah, I think his other teammates need to step up. You know, we saw Middleton had a good game in Game 1, but they need consistent 3-point shooting. They need better spacing. So that's something that Prunty kind of mentioned there, spacing the floor better, because the Celtics are just collapsing on Giannis when he gets to the paint. They're doing a good job on him. You've seen a couple times he gets into the lane and tries a spin move and ends up traveling because the Celtics are just collapsing on him. So, you know, maybe it's Giannis trying to do too much, but it's also his teammates need to step up as well.
Well, even though the odds are against the Bucks right now in terms of coming out of a 2-game hole, it's not like it hasn't been done. Celtics did it last year when they were playing, heading to Chicago, but with this team, do you think they will be able to regroup and put a better product out there that can beat Boston when they're out in Milwaukee?
You know, if you're a Bucks fan, you would hope so. I think it's still going to be somewhat of a competitive series. I think the Celtics obviously are ahead right now, and I think they're going to win the series. But I could easily see this going 6 games. I think the Bucks can steal at least 1 game at home. You know, Giannis is one of the best players in the NBA. He's going to have a time where he just takes over, and then, you know, those guys, his supporting cast, they've been pretty much non-existent. Someone's going to step up, I feel like, especially at home. But again, you look at right now, you have to be pretty confident if you're a Celtics fan that over a 7-game series, they have the advantage.
And I think what's good for the season, Rozier and Jaylen Brown talked about it last night, is the fact that the shoe was on the other foot last year. So they aren't taking the Bucks lightly. They themselves were able to make a comeback. So they're staying, even though as a fan you might be feeling confident, they're not getting overly confident, which is a good thing. Thanks, Darren. So games 3 and 4 going down this weekend in Milwaukee. First one, 9:30 Friday night, and then a matinee on Sunday. Tip-off is at 1. As always, keep up with all your Celtics news on NESN.com. That's it for this episode of Celtics Now. We will see you next week.